The sun was setting on Earth, casting a golden glow over the cities, unaware of the storm approaching from the stars. High above, the alien fleet had arrived, massive ships that blocked out the sky like a dark, menacing shadow. They were not here to ask for peace. They were not here to negotiate. Earth had been marked, and now it was the target of an unstoppable invasion. At the Earth Defense Command Center, officers stared at their monitors with fear and disbelief. The countdown had begun. The aliens had arrived with overwhelming force. There was no time left to prepare, no time to hope for a miracle. Humanity was on the brink of extinction. 5 minutes until impact, the voice of the command officer rang out across the room. His hand shook as he punched commands into the console. The entire fleet of alien ships was moving into position. The invaders had already destroyed the first line of Earth's defenses. The military was in chaos. They were outnumbered and outgunned. In the command center, General Marco stood frozen, staring at the screens in front of him. His mind raced as he thought of the people he had sworn to protect. The children, the families, the cities that would soon be turned to dust. His hands tightened around the edge of the table, his jaw clenched in grim determination. "We can't fight them. Not like this," he whispered to himself, almost in disbelief. The enemy was too powerful. Their weapons were unlike anything Earth had ever seen. There was no chance of survival. Not unless something changed, and fast. Outside, the sky had darkened as the alien ships aligned above Earth's major cities. They had come for one purpose: to conquer and destroy. The enemy's fleet was like a wall, stretching across the sky, blotting out the sun. Each ship was a fortress, equipped with weapons that could wipe out entire continents with a single shot. Humanity stood no chance. The countdown continued. Every second felt like an eternity. 3 minutes until impact. The voice of the officer crackled through the speaker. A cold shiver ran down General Marco's spine. It was happening. Earth was about to be destroyed. Across the world, panic spread like wildfire. People screamed in the streets, rushing to hide in basements, looking for safety that didn't exist. The planet's leaders, once so confident in their ability to defend their home, were now faced with the grim reality. They had been outclassed. "All units are in retreat," the communications officer said. Her voice trembled, her eyes wide with fear. The Earth's defenses were failing. There were no reinforcements, no time to launch a counterattack. As the seconds ticked away, a sense of finality hung over the room. There would be no second chances. The aliens had done their homework. They knew Earth's weaknesses, and they had exploited every one of them. Suddenly, there was a faint blip on the radar. General Marco's eyes narrowed as he stared at the screen. It was a small signal, weak and distant, almost impossible to detect. The officer next to him quickly checked the data. "It's a distress signal," she said, her voice shaking. "But from where?" Marco leaned forward. He hadn't expected any more surprises. "Put it on the main screen," he ordered. A screen lit up with static, and then a voice came through, distorted but clear enough to be understood. "This is Earth's final warning. You have made a grave mistake. The countdown to your doom begins now." Marco froze. The message was chilling. It wasn't a plea for help. It wasn't a message of surrender. It was something different. A promise. A warning. "Who sent that?" Marco asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It came from Earth," the officer said, confused. "But how? How could anyone still be operating out there?" Before she could answer, the screens flashed with new information. It was another signal, even stronger than the last one. Marco's heart pounded as the symbols on the screen changed, forming a pattern he'd never seen before. Then the lights in the command center flickered and went out, and an eerie silence filled the room. A low hum resonated from deep within the Earth, a strange vibration that shook the very ground they stood on. Everyone looked at each other in confusion and fear. "What's happening?" someone asked. Suddenly, the hum stopped, replaced by a deep rumble, as if something massive was awakening deep beneath the surface of the planet. The walls shook as if the Earth itself was responding. The room filled with tension. And then, as if on cue, the lights returned. But this time, the screens were filled with an image that none of them could have expected. A fleet of ships, human ships, massive and powerful, appeared in space. They were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. They were sleek and dark, their designs far beyond the technology of Earth's best minds. Each ship was armed with weapons that made the alien fleet look small in comparison. They were hidden. General Marco whispered, barely able to believe what he was seeing. "How is this possible?" The voice on the speaker returned, and this time, it was calm and confident. "You made your mistake when you thought Earth was weak. You've only seen a fraction of what humanity is capable of. Prepare for the consequences." Marco's heart raced as the countdown continued. The aliens had no idea what was coming. The small, seemingly weak human species was no longer the prey. They were the hunters. 2 minutes until impact, the officer said, her voice trembling. But General Marco didn't hear her. All he could hear was the distant hum of humanity's war fleet, the sound of justice preparing to arrive. The war was about to change, and the invaders had no idea what they had just unleashed. The final countdown was nearly over. But now, Earth had a new weapon, the will to fight. The countdown to Earth's destruction was almost over. The alien fleet was poised to strike, their weapons prepared to rain devastation down upon the planet. But in the midst of the impending chaos, something unexpected was unfolding. The hidden fleet, humanity's secret, most powerful weapon, had awakened. General Marco stood at the center of the command room, his hands clenched tightly around the edge of the table. His heart raced as the gravity of the situation sank in. The alien ships still loomed overhead, their massive shapes blocking out the sun. The countdown on the main screen showed only a minute left. The Earth was seconds away from being obliterated. Yet, in the back of his mind, a tiny spark of hope had flickered to life. The hidden fleet. He had thought it was a myth, something whispered about in hushed voices, never confirmed. But the ships, human-made ships of unimaginable power, were real. And they were now deployed, hurtling toward the battle from the depths of the Earth. "How are they still undetected?" Marco murmured, his voice barely audible as he watched the fleet take position. The officer at the radar station turned to him, her face pale. "General, the enemy is still unaware. Their sensors are focused on our surface defenses, but they haven't noticed the new fleet yet." A few moments of tense silence followed. On the surface, the alien fleet was still in full assault mode, charging toward Earth with a terrifying speed. Marco's mind raced. How could humanity turn the tables in such a short time? "They've underestimated us," he muttered. "They thought we were powerless." Despite the overwhelming odds, the fleet was the only chance humanity had now. These were no ordinary ships. They were Earth's last hope, ships that had been kept hidden beneath the surface for decades, built in secret by the brightest minds and the most skilled engineers on the planet. They were equipped with technology far beyond anything the aliens had ever encountered. As the alien ships began to power their weapons, Marco felt a cold chill run down his spine. The world had never faced a threat like this. It was a moment of pure vulnerability. The Earth stood defenseless, waiting to be destroyed. "Activate the fleet," Marco ordered, his voice filled with newfound determination. At once, the screens around him flickered, and the Earth's hidden warships began to move into formation. Slowly, the ships started to rise from the depths. Massive war vessels that had been buried for centuries, waiting for this moment. Marco could see the ships appear on the radar, each one more imposing than the last. "General," the officer at the console said nervously, "they're locking onto the alien fleet. The weapons are online." Marco nodded. His eyes never left the screen as he watched the newly emerged fleet, their sleek forms gliding through space, forming an impenetrable wall between Earth and the invaders. "Let them come," he whispered under his breath. They will soon see what happens when you provoke a species that has nothing left to lose. The alien fleet still hovered in orbit, unaware of the incoming human armada. The clock was ticking. A moment of eerie silence hung over the room as Marco took one last look at the Earth, his home. People all over the planet were unaware of the warships that now flew in the sky, hidden by the very same forces that had kept them secret. The alien fleet had no idea what they had just triggered. 10 seconds, the voice from the command speaker echoed. The countdown was almost over. Marco's mind flashed back to the warning he had received earlier about the mistake the aliens had made. They thought they had Earth cornered. They had no idea that Earth had a weapon they would never be able to defeat: humanity's will to survive. "Launch," Marco ordered. Suddenly, the entire room shook as the fleet surged forward. Lights blinked, alarms blared, and the hum of thousands of engines filled the air. The human warships opened fire. The enemy fleet had just made their first mistake. They thought they had everything under control, but they hadn't anticipated the fury of the human race when pushed to the edge. As the warships of Earth began to fire, the invaders' shields crackled under the force of the blasts. The human ships were faster, more precise, and much deadlier than the aliens had ever imagined. Energy pulses tore through the alien ships' hulls, causing massive explosions in their wake. "We've broken their formation," one of the officers shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. "They're retreating." Marco couldn't believe it. Earth's fleet had only just arrived, yet the alien force that had seemed so unstoppable moments ago was now retreating, their ships scattering in panic. The invaders had underestimated Earth's might, and now they were feeling the consequences. The alien fleet, once a terrifying presence in the sky, was now in disarray. The ships were firing erratically, trying to regroup, but the human fleet was relentless. Each blast from Earth's ships took down another enemy vessel, pushing the invaders further back. Marco watched the screen in disbelief. It wasn't just the weapons that were working in humanity's favor. It was the courage, the heart, the will to fight that had powered these ships and propelled them into battle. Earth's fleet wasn't just a group of ships. It was a symbol, a reminder to the invaders of what they were up against, a reminder that Earth would not be crushed without a fight. The countdown had ended. The Earth was no longer waiting for destruction. The human fleet had arrived, and the invaders had made their first mistake. "We are not done yet," Marco said, his voice firm. "We've just begun." And with that, the final battle for Earth had begun. The alien fleet had retreated, but their commanders were not ones to back down so easily. They had underestimated humanity's resolve once, and they wouldn't make the same mistake again. However, as their ships scattered and attempted to regroup, they could feel a change in the atmosphere. Something had shifted. Marco, standing at the helm of the Earth fleet, watched as the alien ships regrouped in a distant corner of the solar system. Their retreat was not just a physical maneuver. It was a sign of something much larger. The enemy commanders knew this wasn't the end of the battle. This was only the beginning. But they had no idea how determined humanity was to protect their home. "We've pushed them back," Marco said, his voice steady. "But this is only the first round. They'll come back harder." The war room buzzed with activity as the fleet's officers worked to track the alien movements. The enemy was gathering, shifting their position, and preparing for another strike. Marco had seen it all before, in different battles and wars. But this time was different. This time, humanity wasn't going to back down. "We need to hold the line," Marco continued, his gaze fixed on the radar screen. "We've shown them what we're capable of, but we need to make sure they know we will do whatever it takes to protect Earth." The fleet had made a powerful statement. The alien forces now knew that Earth wasn't the weak, vulnerable planet they had assumed it was. Humanity had a weapon that the invaders could never have anticipated. But the question remained, would it be enough to keep the Earth safe? Marco knew this was just the calm before the storm. Outside the fleet, the stars seemed to fade as darkness filled the void. A moment of eerie silence stretched across the galaxy as both sides braced for the next strike. Tensions were running high. The aliens, who had once thought Earth was ripe for destruction, were now shaken. The warships that had once soared confidently toward Earth were now scattered, trying to regroup and reassess the situation. But Marco knew the enemy would return. They were formidable, advanced, and relentless. They wouldn't simply disappear after a single setback. Humanity had made their first move, but the battle was far from over. "General," one of the officers called out, her voice laced with urgency. "We've detected a massive fleet approaching from the outer edge of the system. They're coming in fast." Marco's eyes narrowed. He wasn't surprised. This was exactly what he had feared. The aliens were regrouping, bringing in reinforcements for a counterattack. But Earth had one advantage they couldn't ignore: the element of surprise. "We need to move fast," Marco ordered. "Activate the outer defense grid. Prepare the fleet for the next wave. We can't let them push us back again." The Earth fleet, though battle-worn, was ready for the fight. The massive warships, their hulls glowing with the energy of 1,000 suns, began to shift into formation. Their weapons powered up, sending a pulse of readiness through every vessel. "The enemy is closing in," one of the officers said, pointing to the radar as the alien fleet grew larger on the screen. "They've deployed their heavy artillery. It's going to be a fierce battle." Marco's pulse quickened. He had fought in many battles, but none like this. Earth's survival was hanging by a thread, and he knew the next few minutes could decide everything. He looked at the screen, his mind racing. If the enemy brought their full force, Earth wouldn't stand a chance. But if they fought smart, if they used their hidden fleet and their advanced technology wisely, they could turn the tide. "Hold steady," Marco said, his voice low and calm. "We've beaten them once. We can do it again." As the alien fleet approached, their ships glowed with ominous energy. They had weapons that could annihilate entire cities, weapons that could turn entire planets to ash. Yet there was something about their approach that seemed different this time. They were more cautious, more calculating. The retreat hadn't been a simple loss for them. It had been a wake-up call. The alien commander, Zorath, watched his fleet as it advanced, his mind running through battle strategies. He had underestimated humanity once, but not again. He would destroy them, and he would do it by hitting their weakest point, Earth's heart. "We will crush them this time," Zorath muttered to himself. "Their fleeting victory means nothing. We have the power to end this." But even as he said the words, doubt lingered in the back of his mind. Humanity had shown a strength he hadn't anticipated. They had awakened something inside their war fleet, something ancient and powerful. In the heart of the human fleet, Marco's mind was laser-focused. He knew the aliens were preparing to attack with everything they had. But he wasn't worried. He trusted his fleet. He trusted humanity. "We can't afford to let them break through," Marco said. "This is it. We hold the line." With a flash of light and the hum of energy surging through the ships, the battle began anew. The Earth fleet opened fire first. Their weapons, stronger and more precise, fired in rapid succession, streaking toward the incoming enemy fleet. The first wave of alien ships exploded in bursts of fiery energy as the Earth warships tore through their defenses. Zorath's fleet was reeling from the unexpected ferocity of the assault. Their shields flared brightly, struggling to absorb the blows. The alien ships fought back with their own weapons, but they were no match for the speed and power of the human fleet. "This isn't over," Marco said, his eyes fixed on the battlefield. "We're just getting started." As the two fleets collided in the vastness of space, the fate of Earth hung in the balance. The invaders had no idea what they were truly up against, and Marco, along with the entire Earth fleet, was about to show them. The stars above Earth seemed to tremble as the battle raged on. The alien fleet, though damaged and broken, wasn't finished yet. Zorath, the alien commander, watched from his flagship as his forces began to regroup. They had lost many ships, but their pride and desperation burned bright. The fight for Earth was far from over. Marco's eyes scanned the battlefield, his grip tight on the controls. The Earth fleet had made significant progress, but the enemy was relentless, throwing wave after wave of attacks. The enemy's firepower was fierce, but humanity's will to protect their planet was even stronger. "We're losing hull integrity on several ships," one of Marco's officers reported. "We can't hold out much longer if they keep hitting us like this." Marco's jaw tightened. He could feel the pressure mounting. The fleet had been holding steady, but time was running out. The aliens were preparing something bigger. Marco knew it. The final phase of the battle was about to begin. "Prepare the defense grid to its maximum output," Marco ordered. "We need to buy ourselves some time." Outside, the Earth fleet surged forward, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. But the alien ships retaliated with even more powerful blasts. Explosions rocked the Earth fleet, shaking the ships to their cores. Marco could hear the hum of alarms blaring through the war room, signaling the loss of another ship. "We can't afford this," Marco muttered to himself. "We need to end this now." He looked at the screen again. The enemy fleet had formed up into a massive formation, something larger than they had ever attempted before. They were preparing for a final push, an all-out assault that would leave no room for survival. Zorath's voice crackled over the communication channel, cold and filled with determination. "Humanity's time is over. Your fleet is broken, and your planet will fall. You are nothing against us." But Marco wasn't listening. He knew the truth. The aliens might have power, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated humanity's resolve. They had underestimated Earth. "We're not done yet," Marco said, his voice steady. He turned to his crew. "This is the final stand. No retreat. No surrender. We fight for every inch of this planet." The crew members nodded, their faces determined. They had come too far to back down now. Earth's survival was hanging by a thread, and they would do whatever it took to hold the line. The Earth fleet powered forward, its warships firing relentlessly at the alien forces. The battle escalated in intensity as both sides unleashed their full might. But there was something different in the air now. The Earth fleet was fighting with a ferocity that the aliens hadn't expected. Every shot, every maneuver, was a testament to humanity's will to survive. But the aliens were not easily defeated. They launched their own devastating counterattack, sending waves of energy that tore through the Earth fleet's defenses. Marco watched in horror as another of his ships was consumed by an alien blast, its hull breaking apart in a flash of fire. "General," one of the officers cried, "we need backup. We can't hold on much longer." Marco's mind raced. He needed to do something drastic, something that would change the course of the battle. He had a plan, a dangerous one, but it might just work. "Send a signal to the hidden fleet," Marco ordered. "It's time." The officers exchanged confused glances. The hidden fleet was something the aliens had no knowledge of, an elite group of warships, kept in reserve for moments like this. The rest of the Earth fleet had been holding back, conserving their energy and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "This is it," Marco muttered under his breath. He watched as the signal was sent, praying that their hidden fleet would arrive in time. Meanwhile, the aliens were closing in, ready for the final blow. Zorath had no idea what was coming. He believed the victory was in his grasp. His ships surged forward, their weapons aimed at the heart of the Earth fleet. Then, without warning, the stars seemed to light up all at once. Out of the darkness of space, the hidden Earth fleet appeared. Hundreds of massive warships, their energy weapons crackling, descended on the alien forces like a storm. The tide of the battle shifted instantly. The aliens, caught off guard, were thrown into chaos as the new fleet opened fire. Zorath's eyes widened in disbelief. He had never seen anything like this before. The Earth fleet, once struggling, now had the upper hand. The hidden fleet's advanced technology, tore through the alien forces, disabling ship after ship with precision and power. "We have them now," Marco said, his voice filled with resolve. "Push forward, everyone. This is our moment." The Earth fleet, reinvigorated by the sudden arrival of the hidden fleet, surged forward. They fought with renewed strength, their weapons and tactics pushing the alien forces back. The balance of power had shifted. Zorath, desperate to turn the tide, ordered a retreat. But it was too late. The Earth fleet, empowered and united, was closing in fast. The final confrontation was imminent, and Zorath knew that his chances of victory had slipped away. The alien fleet, once so confident, was now in full retreat, their ships scattering in all directions as they tried to escape the Earth fleet's wrath. Marco stood tall in the command center, watching the retreating enemy ships. The victory was almost within reach, but the war was not over yet. Earth had taken a step toward survival, but the fight for the future was far from over. The final battle would come soon. But for now, humanity had won this round. "We've done it," Marco said quietly, his eyes still on the screen. "But we must remain vigilant. This fight isn't over." The Earth fleet had pushed the aliens back, and the sky was once again theirs. The final stand had come, and humanity had emerged victorious. For now. The victorious cheers from the Earth fleet echoed through the command center, but Marco knew that the war was far from over. The battle had been fierce, but the real test was still to come. The alien forces, though retreating, weren't defeated. They would regroup, re-strategize, and return stronger. He could feel it in his bones. Their arrogance, their belief that they were invincible. It was that belief that had almost crushed humanity. But not today. Today, Earth had fought back. "We've secured the perimeter, sir," one of Marco's officers reported, his voice filled with relief. "The alien ships are retreating to the outer rim. We've got time to regroup." Marco nodded, but his mind was racing. Time was a luxury they didn't have. The alien forces were powerful, and this war had only just begun. There was no way they would stop until they had claimed Earth or destroyed it. "Reinforce the fleet," Marco ordered. "We need to be ready for their next move. They'll be back, and when they do, we need to be prepared." The officers exchanged tense glances, but nodded. They had seen firsthand how the tide of battle could shift in an instant. The victory was only a temporary one. It was what happened next that would decide Earth's fate. Meanwhile, aboard the alien flagship, Zorath was seething with fury. His once mighty fleet had been broken, scattered to the far reaches of space. His pride, shattered. The humans had caught them off guard, but Zorath was no fool. He would not make the same mistake again. He would rebuild, stronger than before, and this time, Earth would fall. "Prepare the reinforcements," Zorath growled. "We're not done yet." His officers scrambled to obey. But Zorath's mind was already working on a new strategy, one that would crush Earth's fleet before they had a chance to recover. Back on Earth, Marco stood before a war map, watching as his officers worked tirelessly to strategize their next move. The Earth fleet was formidable, but the alien threat was still looming, and the resources they had left were dwindling. "We need more firepower," Marco said, his voice low but firm. "We need to take the fight to them. If we wait for them to regroup, we're done for." His officer nodded. "We've already sent a request for more resources, sir, but it'll take time to get the reinforcements here." Marco didn't have time. He knew the aliens would waste no time in launching their next attack, and if they were able to strike before the reinforcements arrived, Earth's chances of survival would plummet. "We don't have the luxury of waiting," Marco replied. "We're going to have to use what we have and make it count." The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Earth's fleet moved into position, ready for the next wave. Marco knew this was their only shot. If they could strike first, they might be able to cripple the alien forces before they had a chance to fully recover. But the risk was enormous. As the Earth fleet prepared to launch their counteroffensive, Marco stood on the bridge of his ship, staring out at the dark expanse of space. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. But it was a risk they had to take. If they didn't act now, the alien forces would be back in full force, and Earth would have no chance. "Captain, all systems are ready," one of his officers said, breaking his thoughts. Marco nodded. "All right, let's show them what humanity is made of." With a deep breath, he gave the command. The fleet surged forward, its ships cutting through space with a power and determination that was unmistakable. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about sending a message, one that would echo through the galaxy. The alien forces hadn't expected this. Zorath had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to fight back with everything they had. As the Earth fleet moved forward, weapons blazing, the alien ships tried to regroup, but it was too late. Humanity had struck first, and now the balance of power was shifting once again. Zorath cursed under his breath. He hadn't anticipated this level of resistance. The humans had more fight in them than he'd realized, and now they were taking the war to him. On the battlefield, explosions rocked the stars as the Earth fleet clashed with the alien forces once again. The air was thick with energy blasts, and every ship was pushing itself to the limit. The alien ships were powerful, but they were being outmaneuvered and overwhelmed by the sheer willpower of the humans. Marco watched from his command station, every fiber of his being focused on the battle ahead. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The moment when humanity would show the galaxy that Earth wasn't just some helpless world to be conquered. They were a force to be reckoned with. "Keep pushing forward," Marco shouted. "We're not backing down now." The Earth fleet surged forward, their weapons lighting up the dark void of space. The aliens, caught off guard by the sudden ferocity of humanity's assault, were forced into a desperate retreat. The tide of the battle had turned once again. Zorath's flagship, the heart of the alien fleet, began to break apart under the relentless fire. The alien forces were faltering, their once unified front beginning to crumble. Earth had found its strength, and with every blast, every maneuver, they were reminding the aliens of their mistake. Humanity was not a species to be underestimated. But Zorath wasn't done yet. He had one final card to play, a weapon that would change the course of the battle. But humanity wasn't about to let him. Not this time. The war wasn't over, but humanity had proven that they could fight and win. The stars above Earth seemed to tremble as the battle raged on. Humanity's fleet was holding strong, but the alien forces, though weakened, were not ready to give up. Marco knew the war was reaching its climax. This would be the final confrontation. Every moment, every decision, would determine the fate of their home planet. The alien flagship, once a symbol of power and fear, now limped in space, barely holding itself together. Its shields flickered weakly, and its engines sputtered under the pressure of humanity's relentless assault. But Zorath, the commander of the alien fleet, wasn't a leader who gave up easily. He had one final weapon, something that could turn the tide in his favor and obliterate humanity's last hope. Marco stared at the glowing red icon on his screen. Zorath's flagship. It was surrounded by a fleet of smaller, desperate alien ships, but there was something else, an energy buildup. The aliens were preparing their final strike. The weapon they had developed was designed to collapse the planet's atmosphere, rendering Earth uninhabitable in moments. The thought of it sent chills down Marco's spine. If that weapon fired, Earth wouldn't survive. "Captain, they're charging up something," an officer called out from the tactical station. "It's like nothing we've seen before." Marco's hands clenched into fists. "Prepare for everything. We can't let them fire that weapon." The moment they had feared was finally here. The countdown had begun. Humanity's fleet had only moments before the enemy's weapon would reach full power. Marco's mind raced. They had been through so much already, fought so hard, and they couldn't let this be the end. Not when they had come so far. He knew that if they were going to survive, they needed to strike now. "All ships," Marco said, his voice low but commanding. "We hit them hard, and we hit them fast. This is it. No hesitation." His officers nodded, their faces a mix of determination and fear. They knew the stakes. They knew this was the moment that could either save or doom humanity. The fleet surged forward. As the Earth ships moved in, their weapons blazing, the alien ships retaliated with a fury they had never shown before. The skies were filled with bursts of light, energy shields crackling, and ships dancing in a deadly ballet of destruction. Marco's heart pounded as he watched the battle unfold on the view screen. This was it, the final push. "Target the flagship. Concentrate firepower on the flagship," Marco ordered. The Earth ships closed in, firing with everything they had. The massive alien warship began to shake under the bombardment, its shields cracking under the relentless assault. But Zorath wasn't going down without a fight. He barked orders to his officers, and the flagship fired a deadly burst of energy, aimed straight at the Earth fleet's command ship. The blast hit with tremendous force, shaking the ship violently. The crew was thrown to the ground, and alarms blared as systems began to fail. "Damage report," Marco shouted, struggling to stay on his feet as the ship rocked. "We're down to 30% shields," an officer reported. "Weapons are still online, but we've lost auxiliary power." Marco gritted his teeth. They were taking hits, but they couldn't afford to stop. Not now. "Reinforce the shields. Give everything we've got," Marco ordered. "We keep pushing forward." The battle raged on, but humanity's resolve was unwavering. The alien ships were slowly being pushed back, their lines breaking as Earth's fleet closed in. Zorath's flagship was limping, but its weapon was still charging. It wouldn't be long before it reached full power. The countdown was in its final moments. "We've got one last chance," Marco said to his officer. "If we don't destroy that flagship now, Earth is gone. All ships, focus fire on Zorath's flagship." With a final, collective roar, the fleet fired every weapon at their disposal. The massive, focused beams of energy shot toward the alien flagship, punching through its weakened shields. The flagship shuddered, its energy core starting to destabilize under the pressure of the concentrated assault. Zorath's flagship was breaking apart, but Zorath wasn't done. As the Earth fleet closed in, he gave one final command. "Fire the weapon now." A massive surge of energy erupted from the flagship, a burst so powerful that it sent shockwaves through space. It was aimed at Earth, the culmination of all their efforts to destroy humanity. The weapon would have obliterated Earth in a single shot. "No," Marco shouted, realizing what was happening. But before the beam could reach Earth, an unexpected twist occurred. A single Earth ship, one that had been dangerously close to the flagship during the battle, launched its final weapon. A powerful EMP blast aimed directly at the alien weapon. The pulse surged through space, striking the alien flagship at the exact moment the weapon fired. The alien weapon malfunctioned. The energy beam that had been meant for Earth fizzled out, fading into nothingness. Zorath's flagship erupted in a catastrophic explosion. The alien fleet watched in horror as their command ship was consumed in the blast, the explosion sending shockwaves through their remaining forces. Their final hope was gone. The weapon had failed. Marco watched in disbelief as the alien fleet began to break apart, retreating in disarray. The moment they had feared, Earth's destruction, had been averted. Humanity had won, but the cost had been high. Many ships had been lost, many lives sacrificed. But in the end, Earth had stood tall. "We did it," Marco whispered, his voice filled with both relief and exhaustion. But the war wasn't over. The aliens had been defeated, but humanity knew that the galaxy was still a dangerous place. And as Marco looked out at the stars, he knew that their fight was far from finished. There would always be more battles to come, but now, Humanity was ready for anything. The skies over Earth were quiet again, but the calm felt surreal after the chaos of the past weeks. The battle was over, the alien fleet shattered, and the threat of annihilation had passed. Yet for Marco and his crew, the victory was bittersweet. The cost had been high, lives were lost, cities shattered, and their world forever changed. But one thing was clear: Earth had survived. Humanity had proven its strength, its will to fight, and its resolve. As Marco stood on the bridge of the flagship, gazing at the planet below, he knew the war had not only changed their enemies' view of Earth, it had changed Earth itself. The once thriving world had been pushed to the edge of destruction, but it had come back stronger. The war had shown them just how much they could endure, how much they could overcome. "Captain, we've received a message from the Galactic Council." One of the officers interrupted his thoughts. "They want to speak to you." Marco frowned. After everything that had happened, he wasn't sure what the Council would want now. They had dismissed humanity as insignificant before the war, treating them like mere pawns in a cosmic game. But things had changed. The humans had fought and won, and that meant the Council would have to acknowledge them. "Put it through," Marco said, his voice steady, but with a hint of tension. The screen flickered to life, and the face of the Council's representative appeared, a tall, imposing figure with alien features, known as Voltrax. His eyes, cold and calculating, scanned Marco before he spoke. "Captain Marco of Earth," Voltrax began, his voice carrying an air of authority. "I come to you with an offer." Marco narrowed his eyes. An offer? After everything the Council had put humanity through, after dismissing them, now they wanted to make a deal. "I'm listening," Marco replied, his voice unwavering. Voltrax continued, "The Galactic Council recognizes the strength you've displayed. We acknowledge that humanity has become a force to be reckoned with. We extend our apologies for underestimating you. We would like to propose a new alliance, a partnership between Earth and the Council. Together, we can ensure the stability of this sector." Marco was silent for a moment, processing the words. He had never imagined this moment. The same Council that had once ignored Earth, that had seen humanity as weak, now wanted to ally with them. "And what do you expect in return?" Marco asked cautiously. Voltrax's expression remained neutral, but there was a subtle glimmer of calculation in his eyes. "In return, we offer Earth protection from any future threats. We will ensure that no hostile fleet will dare approach your world again. In exchange, we ask for your cooperation in matters of galactic security. We need your help in maintaining peace across the galaxy." Marco leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The offer sounded tempting, but he had learned over the past months that the Council's motives were not always as pure as they seemed. They had tried to wipe out humanity once. What was stopping them from trying again after securing Earth's position in the galaxy? "I'll need time to think it over," Marco said carefully. "But understand this, Voltrax, Earth doesn't need anyone's protection. We're perfectly capable of standing on our own." Voltrax seemed to consider his words for a moment before nodding. "We respect your decision, Captain Marco. But remember, we are offering a future of cooperation, not domination. The choice is yours." With that, the screen flickered off, and Marco was left in silence, staring at the empty space in front of him. The message was clear. Earth was no longer insignificant. But the question remained: would they truly join the Galactic Council, or would they chart their own course in the stars? The war had ended, but a new challenge had just begun. Marco knew that humanity had proven itself, but now the true test lay ahead. It wasn't just about fighting. It was about navigating the political web of the galaxy, forging alliances, and deciding what kind of future Earth would have in this vast, unknown universe. "Captain," his officer spoke again, pulling him from his thoughts. "What do we do now?" Marco stood, his gaze fixed on the view of Earth below. The planet looked peaceful, serene even, but he knew that beneath this calm, the next chapter was already unfolding. The stars were filled with potential, dangerous, unpredictable, but full of opportunity, and humanity would be ready for whatever came next. "We rebuild," Marco said, his voice filled with determination. "We rebuild stronger than before. We'll make our own way. But we'll never forget what we've lost and what we've gained." He turned toward the officers, his crew who had stood by him through the darkest moments of the war. They had given everything for this victory, and now they would lead Earth into the future. "We've survived. Now we make sure the galaxy knows what we're capable of. We're not just survivors, we're conquerors, and the stars better watch out." As Marco turned back to the view of Earth, the future seemed uncertain. But for the first time in a long while, he felt something new: hope. Humanity had shown the galaxy that they could stand on their own. And with that strength, they would face whatever came next, together. And so, a new era began for Earth, one where they were no longer just a small, insignificant planet in the vastness of space. Earth was now a force to be reckoned with. The war had ended, but humanity's journey had just begun.